Joining me on the show this morning from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, Lucas Vebber, Deputy Counsel for this great organization. Good morning, Lucas. How are you?
Good morning, Meg. I'm doing well, and thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Happy Friday. That's the best news right there.
Absolutely. Happy Friday.
Yes. Well, in light of what is almost always not so happy news, including the topic we're going to discuss, I guess what I asked you off air is I don't really understand what the holdup is, no pun intended, with regard to the situation with the FBI withholding the Nashville shooters manifesto. I know that you've now, Will has filed a lawsuit. Let's talk about the lawsuit to begin with, and then we'll kind of go on what we think is going on.
Yeah, so we represent a newspaper that has requested this, the manifesto, and the manifesto is really like a series of writings that the police have referred to it as the manifesto, but it's really a couple of journals and some other writings. So we don't know exactly what it all entails, but our client requested that so that they could see it. And part of the import here is that policymakers in Tennessee and all around the country are looking for solutions. They want to know what could be done, if anything, to make sure that this heinous crime doesn't happen again. And part of that is just finding out what the motives are, right? You want to know what drove this disgusting criminal to do this stuff and to hurt these people. And we can't do that unless we have access to those materials. But for whatever reason, the FBI and the Nashville Police Department just have outright refused to release anything.
Well, I know that you're representing the Star News Network, editor-in-chief, and then a reporter that filed this Freedom of Information request. Have you had other news organizations contact you and say they want to sign on to this, or is this curiously not of interest to, let's just say, the mainstream media?
No, there's been, I think there's been a pretty, what I'd call almost a groundswell of support from people who are reaching out trying to get access to these documents. So we're not going to add anybody to our litigation. I think there's a lot of interest down there, and a lot of people are asking for these documents. So, which I think is, when they say no, you can't have them, I think it almost drives interest a little more. People are wondering why not. And
right.
So what our clients submitted the request. The request was denied. The FBI cited a provision of FOIA, which is the Federal Public Records Law, provision of FOIA that says that federal law enforcement can withhold records if it could be reasonably expected to impact enforcement actions, is what they said. So obviously here, this individual's dead. There's not going to be no criminal proceedings against them. So that answer didn't make a whole lot of sense to us. So we're kind of, waiting to hear more from the FBI on it. But, like every federal agency, the FBI is not above the law. They have to abide by FOIA. They're required to turn over records when they're requested. So our client filed an administrative appeal, which was also denied. And now we have filed a lawsuit in federal court down in Tennessee.
Now, are there other examples of, I know that there are, but have you cited other examples of manifestos that have been made available, manifestos of killers that have been made available very quickly to the public or to media so that coverage is adequate?
Yeah, we have, and we actually cited these in our complaint to make clear that what's happening here is far outside the norm. Typically within 48 hours, a week. Sometimes it takes as long as 3 weeks, but they've always been released relatively quickly. Here we're going on almost 2 months now, where the FBI has just outright refused to release anything. And that's, again, I think it's a bizarre turn of events, and as policymakers everywhere are, drafting solutions and voting on solutions and looking for more solutions, they need to have this information.
Well, and I know that there was, and I guess I misunderstood initially. It wasn't a lawsuit so much as it was the threat of a lawsuit. And then in response, the FBI had announced that they were going to release the manifesto. Have you received any kind of communication from the FBI or representative of the FBI to respond to why they've been going back and forth on this?
No, other than the denials that our clients received, they have gotten nothing back. Now, the Nashville Police Department did come out, I think, at the end of April and said that they were, or maybe it was early May, they said that they were reviewing all the documents for release. I think they've since walked that back and said that they're not going to be releasing anything imminently. So, they probably are working together on it, but we don't know specifically kind of who was making this decision or why. But ultimately, it's going to be decided by the courts.
So I guess in your personal opinion, I mean, do you get the sense that there's a cover-up going on and that there's information that evidently those that are part of this, I don't know, the transgender movement don't want it to be released to the public because of perhaps how unflattering it could be in light of how this is such a popular, I hate to use that term, issue?
I don't know, and we haven't hazarded a guess on any kind of reasons why they'd be doing this, other than, as we said, it's outside the norm, and there's a lot, it's outside the norm. There's a lot of people asking for, and they're not giving it, which is just, I think, very bizarre, and we also believe a violation of federal public records law.
Now, do you get the sense that the Nashville Police Department is just acting upon orders by the FBI, or, I mean, are they also, I guess, in cahoots? I don't know how else to say that, but part of this.
I think they're definitely working together on the investigation. So I think it would make sense that they're working together on what information gets released and what doesn't. I don't know for sure that one side is calling the shots or the other, but it certainly makes a lot of sense that they'd be working together and that they wouldn't want one of them to release records without the other's approval.
Do you have concern that if they should ever release it, that they're going to redact so much of it that it won't be meaningful in any way?
I think it's certainly possible. They are allowed to make limited redactions for certain things, and I think the public generally understands that some things get redacted if there's, when you request public records, if there's like a social security number in it or something, that stuff can be redacted. But oftentimes when redactions happen, it's, you see the black ink covers half the page and you can't quite make out what these documents are. So, we'll have to wait and see what gets turned over whenever it finally gets turned over, and make a decision then if there's anything that we could do in the event that they do redact considerable portions.
So as time goes on, is it public interest that I guess wanes? And I mean, my concern is that the longer they draw this out, the less likely it's going to be of interest to the public, because you know how fickle people are, how short their memories are. But I know that Rasmussen surveyed 971 people in the aftermath of the shooting and found that 68% believed that the manifesto should be released. Do you get the sense that that this is going to come to a resolution soon, or do you think that they're going to continue to hang on to it?
I think when it comes to legal action, soon can always be a relative term. So,
Right.
It could take a month, it could take a couple of months. They could release it today. It's sort of entirely up to how that process plays out. But, I'll say that this issue is not going to get any less important. In a free society, we need a free press. This case is all about the First Amendment freedom of the press, right? They want reporters want to be able to access this information, to report on it, to provide that information to the public, and they're being denied that right by a government agency. And our belief is that federal law doesn't allow it, and that's why we are going to court to defend those rights. So
do you have a court date?
We do not yet. So we just filed, but we should hopefully know more on the timeline in the very near future.
Okay. Well, I'll be cautiously optimistic. I'm kind of cynical about something like this, because I'm to the point now where I think, well, even if a judge orders the FBI to give up this manifesto, I mean, are they really required to do so? I mean, that's I guess where I'm at. Yeah,
I mean, I'm certainly I would say if a judge orders them to, they absolutely would be, and I think when it comes to public record stuff, this is one of the last true bipartisan issues. I think everybody can get behind the idea that we need to have transparency in government, and that these kinds of laws need to be enforced fully. So hopefully there'll be a quick decision, and these records get released, and the public can have a greater understanding of this the heinous acts that were committed down in Nashville.
So do you you said bipartisan. Do you hear that? I mean, is this a bipartisan push to have the manifesto released? Because as far as I can tell, I haven't heard anyone other than I guess those on the right clamoring.
I think maybe nonpartisan would be a better term, but
okay.
I think on the issues generally too, when it comes to public records issues, these aren't partisan issues. I think people on all sides of the aisle kind of can come together on them, and but on this one, again, I think it's a matter of great public import, both in Tennessee but also nationwide, as policymakers and families are just looking for answers and want to understand what happened here and why.
And I guess if those that are opposed to releasing this really do want to come to some kind of solution to these issues, that would be the honest thing to do, would be to release the manifesto. Well, Lucas Vebber, thank you for joining me this morning. I appreciate it very much. If you want to learn more about Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, you can go out to will-law.org.